Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Councillor Jonathan Bianco. I have the honour of running this petition evening this evening. I need to make a few announcements before we get stuck in. The detail of the business being considered today is shown on the agendas, hopefully copies of which you've got. Please note that this... It's not being broadcast? It is being broadcast. Oh, okay. This meeting is being broadcast. Sorry, my cheat sheet said it wasn't being broadcast, and yet my colleague here just said, I've just gone live. So it is being broadcast, so if you should be somewhere else, stay out of the line of the camera. We're not expecting a fire alarm tonight. There is no drill planned, so if the alarm does go off, please follow these gentlemen who will show you the safe way out. I would ask you all to turn your mobile phones at least to silent, rather than guess the tune halfway through one of our discussions. There are some resident feedback forms which are now yellow, is that right? They are now yellow. For years they were orange, but apparently they're now yellow. I don't think there's any significance to that, but they are there, and if you are so minded at the end, please fill one in, take one away, send it back to us, whatever you like, and we'd be happy to hear what you have to say. And lastly, if anyone has a declaration of interest, this is really members as much as anything else, so that really only applies to you and I at the moment, or if there are any other members here, they need to declare them. So, thank you. That's the bones. There are four petitions tonight. One has been cancelled, and the first one is in respect of North Road, West Drayton. Is Mr. Wood here? No. Right. Good. So, is anyone here wishing to speak on North Road, West Drayton? Any of the petitioners? No. Just Councillor Sweeting. Yes. Councillor Sweeting, the floor is yours.
Yes, please.
If you want to, yeah. Or
we'll
if you...
We'll need to have you recorded.
Thank you very much. I'm here in support of the petition. I'm sorry that the lead petitioner is not here this evening. I'm not quite certain why that is the case. But the fact is that we have a petition in front of us that has got 60 signatures on it. So there is a fair degree of concern in the area about the issue of the racing of cars from Porter's Way right the way through the estate until it comes out at Cherry Lane, Sipson Road end. It's been building up for some years, and it's partly because you've got a very large development at Drayton Garden Village and St George's that have become, there's many more cars from that estate than there were initially. And there's no doubt about it that Bell Farm estate is used as the rat run. Now, the problem is that the speed of the cars is not the only problem. It's the fact is that cars race around the roads in that location, and they seem to like racing one another. The speed sometimes isn't above 30, but it's dangerous driving which is at the heart of the problem. And although we haven't got any of the petitioners here this evening, the problem with this has been brought to my notice when I have had my ward surgery at Bell Farm Christian Centre. And several residents have said, yes, our car has been knocked again, the wing mirror has gone, they've been mounting the roundabouts, etc. And I say, have you reported it? Have you phoned 101? Well, it's just the same again. And so there's been a bit of weariness, I suppose, about the whole matter. There is the problem, I think, if you put down to record the speed, that it might not reach, the necessary threshold, but it is the dangerous driving which is really at the heart of things. And so I would ask you to support the petitioners. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Sweeting. The obvious first move is to do a speed check with laying down the cables, because it's an easy and inexpensive way of answering some of the questions. I appreciate the comment you've made. There are other things we can do, obviously. Signs that flash and so on and so forth. There is a growing reluctance on this side of the table towards anything that looks like a speed hump, or a table, or any of the numerous descriptions that basically amount to the same thing. Where we put them in, there's usually great excitement about having them put in, and then when you find out that it's outside your house, the keenness dissipates somewhat, and when it's been in and you've had a few lorries go over it, and the particular culprits, I understand, are the skip lorries with the chains that rattle. People's enthusiasm for them wanes quickly, and we've got a couple of cases running at the moment where people are saying, "Oh, can we take it out? Can we take it out?" So, but there are measures we can take. But I think the first thing to do is probably a speed check. I think it is an unfortunate fact of life that a lot of the measures we might put in that would encourage an average driver, probably someone in this room, to behave more sensibly, have little or no impact on some of our more enthusiastic drivers, should we say, who couldn't give a toss. So there are issues about how we deal with that. I'm disappointed that the police don't spend a little more time with their speed gun in some of these locations, because that also helps. If it's a speeding issue, I mean, clearly it doesn't cover the dangerous driving bit unless they happen to see it right under their noses when it happens. Sorry, you're bursting to say something further.
We had a Safer Neighbourhood team meeting between local police officers and the councillors for Euston and West Drayton only last evening, and we did bring this issue up at that meeting, and the officers were of the opinion that their speed guns would not actually register. You know, that the length of the parcels of road, if you like, were not of a length that would actually allow them to register that in any great degree. We did ask the question, how many times have you had reports on problems in that? And of course, there are not many. I think that often you find that residents sort of shrug and think, oh well, it's just another bump, it's just another problem. I would actually say, I don't know whether the council's ever thought of reducing the width of the carriageway rather than the speed.
Something I was going to ask. These roads, we have relaxed the rules on pavement parking, haven't we? We've allowed two wheels on the pavement in these locations, obviously to create more space on the road. The damage aside, the presence of cars on the road generally tends to slow traffic down, because there has to be some giving and taking and so on and so forth. So, I mean, part of me wonders, and it's simply wondering at this point, whether the answer might not be, in some places, to reverse the two wheels on the pavement, because a car sat on the road will act as more of a deterrent. It's not going to stop. Look, I think the trouble is that if you've got let's use the term young hooligan who's determined to drive fast and dangerously, then pretty much nothing we do is going to prevent them, unfortunately. So it's a case of what one might do to persuade them that this is the wrong route. Narrowing the road. Well, you suggested narrowing the road. It's worth looking at. And if you like, putting cars in the way is another way of narrowing the road. But it's something we can look at. I think I'm minded to. Have you had any conversation with the petitioners in terms of what they would like? I mean, have they? I'm not promising them anything, but have they had any thoughts as to how they'd like to see it cured, or simply that they'd like something done?
Yeah. I think their comments in actually the petition itself, raised tables, etc., and maybe a way of barring the road totally, so people, there's not a through route. Let's put it that way.
Is it a one? I mean, I've been down there. As you may know, I spent some time down there in April, and I've been down there again more recently when this came up, and of course. Typically, when I went down there, it was all nice and quiet, and there wasn't a speeding anything. Is it a one-way problem? So it's not an issue from Porter's Way to Simpson Road. It's both ways. Yeah. Okay. Because one solution we've looked at in a few cases is actually to make the road one way, and if you make it one way against the problem, then it can causes inconvenience, but it can solve other problems. But if it's a two-way issue, then clearly that won't work. Yeah. Closing the road, as in putting a barrier halfway down, it causes all sorts of issues, doesn't it? Because it's not quite an Act of Parliament problem, but it's altogether a more difficult thing to achieve than any of the other methods that leave the road open. Yeah, go on.
This petition was highlighted by the previous councillor for West Drayton, Stuart Mazers, who knows much more about the details of it. So I'm making assumptions about it's two-way, when it may well be, mainly from the Porter's Way to the main road. I know that we've got real problems along the Cherry Lane road that we're thinking of, the council is thinking of putting in measures there. So I think we would need to explore that a bit more.
The trouble in many respects with putting measures in along North Road, for example, is that it just transfers the problem into a road where there currently isn't a problem. I mean, we see this with all sorts of road measures. I've got a classic one in my ward where we put in raised tables some few years ago, and we've created a rat run where there was never a rat run. So, of course, all these people who used to live in peace and quiet have now got a rat run. And so there is the danger of this knock-on. I think the first step is to do a speed test. I appreciate what you're saying, Councillor Sweeting, and I'm not trying to duck that, but I think as a first step it would be good. Let's see what the officers come back with. Perhaps we'll have a word with Councillor Mather and see if he's got anything to say that you haven't, and we'll look at what we might do in respect of steps to slow things down, and I think keep hassling the police. I think because I can't believe that I don't know how. Well, I don't. Okay.
So, Chairman, just for the benefit then of the record, are you moving the regulations in the report?
Well, I've met them. Yes.
Just to announce that, please.
I've moved those.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so that's nearly 20 past. So this is petition number 2 of this evening, Harmondsworth Road, West Drayton. Petition requesting the removal of the grass verge and to improve parking bays, expand them, and the removal of some yellow lines. Mr. Patrick Perry is.
That is me.
That is you. I'm
Indeed.
delighted to see you're here, sir.
Thank you.
If you want to talk, or
I'm going to nominate my wife to
Mrs. Perry,
speak
splendid.
on my behalf, please.
I'm afraid I must ask you to come there so that if anybody's watching online, they can hear you.
Good evening. My name is Miriam Perry. I have to advise you initially that I am not a member of the council, but I am an employee of the council and an officer within London Borough of Hillingdon. My neighbours here and myself, have set this petition because where I can only speak for myself, I live at 17 Harmondsworth Road. Harmondsworth Road is a main road which is divided, it has a service road. The main road is the main road, and lower down there is a service road. The two portions of the road are divided by a grass verge. The grass verge is at its widest point outside numbers 13 to 19 Harmondsworth Road, i.e. our residential properties. It becomes slightly narrower outside 7 to 11, and it widens again in front of 1 to 5 Harmondsworth Road, where it forms a triangle of grass that becomes a junction, turning the corner into Sipson Road. The grass verge is in extremely poor condition and does not appear to be included in any maintenance plans. For example, we had an orange plastic frame that's used by utility companies to shield off a hole that they've dug in the road. We had that embedded into that grass verge for over 2 years, with cars parking on it, and that was to prevent them from sinking into the muddy hole that they'd created through their poor parking. The properties are facing a soon-to-be-built Platinum Jubilee Leisure Centre, which we understand, and we've been advised by Buckingham, the builders, that the number of approved parking spaces have been reduced. So the plans came out with us believing, as residents, that it probably wouldn't affect us in the line of parking because there were sufficient spaces available. That has now been cut. I believe there are only going to be 135 spaces available. So that will have an impact on us both as residents and as local businesses. Additional to that, we have what was the old police station opposite us, which has a number of residents who advise us that they don't have parking. I can't confirm that that's true or not, but they do park outside of our houses, which is quite a step away, and leave their cars for days in those, outside those properties. So our request is that that grass verge is removed, as it absolutely serves no purpose. It is replaced with parking bays as similar to those seen at Dell Road, which is an adjoining road that our service road runs into. Those bays we would propose were put so that cars park side by side rather than nose to tail, and in that case, if the entry of that slip road was paved, we estimate that where we can get 3.5 cars in currently, we could probably have 8 or 10 bays there. So we would double or more our capacity to park vehicles. I know that the council are very keen to keep all green space. We loosely use the term green space for this verge because it really isn't. If perhaps the ideal would be to replant or plant up the triangle area on the corner of Sipson Road / Harmondsworth Road, which would serve a dual purpose. One, it would tidy the area, make it more appealing, make the borough look like a borough that we're all happy to live in, and two, it would counterbalance some of the emissions of the traffic that sit on that at that junction, just making it a better air quality in the locality. As far as the double yellow lines are concerned, the double yellow lines were inserted on Harmonsworth Road 5 or 7 years ago, I believe, to support a cycle lane that was also put there at that time. That cycle lane is one of two on the same stretch, very rarely used. It has a double yellow line, and when we queried that, we were told it's because buses and cyclists are travelling on that spot. Buses and cyclists travel the whole of Useley High Street, and none of it's got double yellow lines. If we had single yellow, at least it would release that area on an evening and a weekend for parkers to come and park their cars, supporting the local businesses and allowing them to use the area. I've just seen the red light, so I feel like I must stop.
Yes, well done. Thank you, Mrs. Ferry. Just to be clear, there are some shops along that stretch. Do you live above? I'm trying to gauge.
No, there are 4 houses. As you drive into that service road,
yes, which
there are 4 houses in front of you.
Oh, okay.
We live in the one of the 4.
Okay, and then the shops
and then there
to the
are
left.
Yes, there are shops. So
okay.
1 to 9 are shops. 1 to 11 are shops. But there are residential properties above.
Yes.
And then our 4 are houses.
Right. Okay. Got it. Yeah. No, I saw the parking in Dell Close when I was down that way. At the end on.
Yes.
So I understand what you're after. You're right about the leisure centre. It's obviously they're on site now. I know that the parking issue was closely examined in respect to the leisure centre, and at a time where we were battling increased build costs, we have looked at parking as I think what we're not doing in the short term is putting the deck on. As I understand it, is being built in a way that will enable the deck to be put on at a later date. So I think the view we took was we'll get it open and see how it goes, and then if we need to put a deck on, we could come along later and add car parking down the line. But it was a financial constraint that caused us to make that change. I think the issue here is quite a simple one. But before we go any further, there are a number of councillors here. Do any of them want to speak on this particular issue? June, yeah. You'll need to. I'm sorry.
June has supported us throughout.
Yeah, no, I'm just. They have a right to speak, and I'm keen to hear them. So.
Just forgive me, Chairman. I've got a nasty neck.
Take your time. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I totally support the residents in what they're asking for, and I am fully aware of the requirements in regards to the space and the access. But that particular area has been a problematic problem for literally the whole of the street, but mostly in front of the 4 houses that Mrs. Perry has described, because I don't know if you ever drive through that area, and it really, especially coming down the side road, you literally can get in or out sometimes because of the way cars are, and also accessibility for emergency vehicles. It's a big problem. So we do give the support to that. This has been ongoing now since I've got involved in it for over 2 years, and getting some assistance in trying to see how it can eliminate the problem has not worked. There is no parking management scheme there, as you're aware of, so there is nothing that can be done because it's an open public road. It is a nuisance for the residents there, especially during the evenings, and I know with the restaurants as well, their customers who comes and park also have problem, and their businesses being affected too as well. So I would ask that you consider removing the grass verge. In the diagram, it doesn't look that big, but it will benefit those residents, the 5 houses, the 4 houses on that area. It will benefit and alleviate the problems that they're having. Bearing in mind there's a lot of cars on the roads at the present time, but if you can consider that, it would be helpful. Thank you.
Okay, any other speakers on this? Oh, gentlemen.
We have a business day.
I'm happy to hear, but how do we stand with them? Do we need?
They would need to come over to the.
I'm sorry. Would you?
And these are the 2 business owners.
Yeah.
Sorry, because it's broadcast, you need to be in a position where the microphone picks you up so that everyone can hear.
Yeah, that's fine. As they have mentioned about the parking there, it is becoming a very big issue for as a business. The establishment that I work in is called Sips and Tandoori, and that business has been there for 20 odd years. And we haven't had as issue as this as before, because customer wise, even us, we can't park there at all. And that's there are people who are parking there coming in for holidays. They're parking there, leaving there for months. There was a car there 3 months, it was there parked up because it broke down. 3 months left there. Recently it got smashed into. That's when he moved the car. So that place needs, we were more going towards the meter, because there is where the old police station used to be, the residents there, they have a WhatsApp group. We've had a chat with who live there, and they have a WhatsApp group, and they each recommend to park there. They'll tell their friends, family, whoever they are, they'll tell them that, okay, there's free parking there, it's safer, because there's businesses, there's flow, there are people there constant, so it'll be safer, so park there. And they are leaving their cars for a very, very long time. And this is affecting us as a business, because we are losing a lot of trade. A lot of people are trying to come in, because they can't park, they're going somewhere else. And we've had from regular customers, people are saying this, that they can't park in there, and it's quite ridiculous is how it's going, because it's stressing us a lot. And as you know now, the price of everything is going up, and with this, if we start losing for parking, if we lose customers, it's something that is something that we can't accept. And my manager, boss as well, they are already thinking of moving. It's something, every little bit, it's just adding on. It just keeps on adding on problems after problems. And there's nuisance because of the parking. There are people who are just threatening us. There was one guy, we told him, please park somewhere else, or don't park here for the whole week or something, move your car. He threatened us, said there's a free parking. So what? I'll park there for months. You can't do anything. He got aggressive at us, because we told him, move somewhere else. You can park here, but move it each time, move it somewhere else, so we can, so someone else can park it there. But they're just literally leaving big vans as well. If you go there, you'll see big vans, even like a mini lorry, where you park there for weeks. And it's just something that really needs to be looked into, and you make some immediate effect, because this is going on for a long time now.
Thank you. What you're describing is a slightly different problem, that adding more parking spaces won't, I don't think, help. In fact, if anything, it might encourage more people to park their cars there long term and disappear off to Spain or wherever they're planning. It is a problem I'm aware of in the whole area of this holiday parking issue, and there are a couple of fairly unscrupulous companies that offer to park your car for you, and when you go off on holiday, you think it's somewhere safe and whatever, and in fact they're just parking it on a street somewhere. So it's a good little game if you can get it. There are limits to what we can do about that. What you've raised is a different problem, and if what you're after is a parking management scheme, that's a different matter. I mean, whether we turn that area into a pay and display is also a different solution, which might help your businesses. I'm not sure how Mrs. Perry would feel about pay and display there in front of. But a residence parking scheme, well, there are a number of issues with residence parking schemes, and obviously they have to be fairly wide. You can't do a residence parking scheme of one road, or it has to be quite a decent area if you're going to put a residence parking scheme in. And if that was the desire, then we'd have to look at it. There's another issue with residence parking schemes, which I won't get into at the moment, but I think the best thing I can say at this point, there seem to be some various different issues. My initial thought was that we needed to maintain the double yellow line because of the cycle route. But I heard what you say, so I think I'd like to go away and investigate that. I might come to that same conclusion, but I'd like to think about it further before we do or don't do that. I'm not a great fan of cycle routes, particularly. And I will ask officers to look at the feasibility. My concern remains that if we turn 3 spaces into 8 or 9 or 10, I mean, yes, it provides a little more space, but is it actually going to provide the answer? I think the green space argument, bearing in mind this is a pretty poor bit of green space, and there are some quite nice bits of green space immediately adjacent, I don't think that's one, that holds much water.
You can put more telephone masts on this.
Well, sorry, I can't. We're jumping into something else there. So, if that's okay, what I will do is I will ask officers to investigate the feasibility of your request, cost point of view, and whether there are any other technical issues. And I will ask them to look at this yellow line business, because I can see that without it, that would provide an evening solution, or evening and weekend solution that would ease. It would certainly ease the commercial issues, and it would be of no help for someone who wants to park their car there for 3 weeks. So I think that makes some sense. Is that okay? Is that okay?
Yes.
Thank you. So petition number 3, speeding measures, Bishops Road, York Avenue, Hayes. This is Wood End, and it's Scott Farley. Do we have a petitioner? Yeah, you are the petitioner. Thank you. There we go.
Beyond it.
Go.
Thank you, Chair. This petition was done a year ago when I was a councillor for the former now defunct Botwell ward. Myself and Councillor Gardner at the time received some emails, concerns from residents, which prompted us to then do a door knocking exercise where we spoke to several residents on the roads, which then led to the petition. The concerns have been laid out in the report, but predominantly we've got 2 fairly wide roads. There's a curvature of the road, which in my opinion does not necessarily follow that it reduces speed, and also with the cars that are parked wheels on, the pavement doesn't actually do much to that. Particularly when we were doing the petition and doing the door knocking, we found we had to stop halfway through the conversation with residents because cars were whizzing past us. Residents have complained about damage to their vehicles, particularly at the north end at Kingsway, and also with animals, their pets that have been killed in the road, and also concerns with the safety for children that are from the school at the south end, Wood End Park Academy, and it's speculative, but there's concerns that with notice that there have been cars that speed to the south of the road towards the school at periods when they're late for school. So that's something that has been noted. Also, we've got wide junctions with Bishops and Hanover and with Stewart and Normandy, etc., which also observations have been that cars will speed into those junctions. I have, or did at the time, in the former ward, did put in queries about having some pedestrian traffic islands for those junctions to potentially slow down traffic coming in to make people think. Residents are not keen on speed bumps or raised tables necessarily, but that's for later. What we want to do now is establish whether or not there is speeding, direction, types of vehicles that are going up and down the road, and when that is occurring. But residents are certainly very concerned, and so that's why we led us to do this petition. So essentially, the other aspect we've got is with some larger vehicles. So I know in some of the previous petitions that have been heard tonight, there's been mention about yellow lines. Yellow lines have been put in places, particularly where there's been issues where very large vehicles have been parked up at junctions. People can't really see what's going on. Hasn't really deterred either people parking on the double yellow lines or reduce the perception of traffic speeding up and down these roads. So the petition predominantly asks for a speed test along both York and Bishops, and then should the evidence bear out to then look at mitigations. Another aspect that I think Councillor Sweeting had mentioned earlier on about the police on another one, there's an issue to do with how they are able to capture with the speed gun and then be able to pull people aside. That was really what the issue was, and it's all to do with where that can be done. I'm also I'm just wanting that another consideration, particularly we saw it widening or chicanes, but also these things that we used to have and still exist in certain places of a priority traffic. So these are other mitigations that might be available potentially. But again, that's for consultation afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you. Needless to say, it's always the way, isn't it? When I went up and down there, prior to this event, it was fine. You always hope when you're going to do one of these inspections, you think, right, I'll see it all, and it's all perfectly bland and the sun's out, and you sort of think, what's all the fuss about? I mean, what you're saying is perfectly sensible. I'm quite happy to instigate a speed check because they're A, inexpensive, and B, quite effective in terms of establishing the background. Well, as I said previously, I'm disappointed if the police just sort of seem to be incapable of operating their speed gun anyway, because they're the only ones that can actually fine people for their misdemeanors. These roads have also got two wheels on the pavement, haven't they? I mean, I just raised that thought again. My wondering is, if you stopped it, would you achieve a slowing down because there was less space? If there's two wheels on the pavement both sides and you can just squeeze two cars down the middle, then of course there's a temptation to go for it, and that's when the damages occur. But I'm not. It's not sort of something I'm just. It's just something that occurs to me. Again, I've seen it in my ward, where there's parking both sides. There is only room for one line, except for the spots where you can pull in, and it does slow things down. I found another issue that speeds traffic's up, which is when we resurface the road. Everyone goes, "Oh, great, it's smooth now." So there are issues. Let's do the speed check. I'm not a fan of humps, bumps, or tables, or whatever people like to call them. You will be seeing very few of them while this portfolio remains under my wing, if that's the right term. But I do think there are other things we can do. As I said, I don't know if you were here, but I mean the flashing light, you're going too fast, speed signs. I think they're nice to have. They can do a bit of good, but mainly they do a bit of good with sort of relatively law-abiding citizens who then look at their speed. Oh, I am going a bit fast. I'll slow down. If someone's determined to speed, then it's almost a prize to see how fast the flashing light. Well, we don't use those anymore. I think we only use the ones that say it's 30 or something. So, but there are other things we can do.
Before you move to any resolutions, just wondering whether any ward councillors wanted to speak.
Yes, I was going to. Yeah, thank you for reminding me. But yeah, so that does seem to make sense. Yeah, come back.
Just to follow up on some things you mentioned there about the cars. Bishops and York, there are quite a number of drop curbs along the road. So I understand what you're saying, but I'm not sure it would necessarily have the impact. And if you were to look at Tudor Road, which is just a lot along to the east, that you can witness speeding there, where people will shoot up and down the road to nip into the next jump in between the next parked car and up and down the road, and that's been quite dangerous as well there. But it's a contrary position to what you find on York and Bishop. So it's just looking at that. It's not. It doesn't necessarily flow. I understand that. Yes.
There is no easy solution, particularly to catch the determined speeder. But look, I think let's look at it incrementally. But before I sort of draw this up, does any local councillor want to speak?
You'll need to come and take.
Sorry, I'm afraid you'll have to.
Probably need to put two chairs there.
Yeah.
I was going to ask if similar things have been done for Tudor, because we have had a few emails. But my main one was, is there any way of working more with the school to do a bit of an awareness as well? just to remind them, particularly around child safety at those junctions when they come, to get them on time, but at what risk? So I just wondered if that was just something that might add value to some of the work.
And no, certainly when Councillor Farley mentioned that, I certainly thought, oh well, yeah, that's a good point. I mean, it begs the question: have you as ward councillors knocked on their door and said, "Oi"?
Not at the moment, but building a bit of a case, if that makes sense.
Okay. Anyone else want to speak on this? No. Okay. Well, on that basis, I will move the 2 recommendations. Okay. Oh, hang on. Mr. Austin has asked if you would care to indicate where you think the boxes would best go. So if you think there's a particular bit where they're going to speed the most, then come and have a look. And Okay, last one of the evening. Abbotswood Way, Hayes. Are you Mr. Stephen Pitcher? Well, good evening, Mr. Pitcher. Welcome. Come and sit down. Tell us all about it.
I've taken this petition up in support of the local residents around Abbotswood Way, Abbey Close and other surrounding areas. I have made a list if you've got a copy each. I'll fly through them, okay, just in case I don't finish. So, emergency vehicles are unable to pass through Abbotswood Way to surrounding areas as cars are double parked and not enough room to get through. Most cars are the big SUVs or 4x4s. Local residents in the area are unable to get back due to parking problems between the hours, or get out due to the hours of 7:30 a.m. to 9 a.m. and 2:30 p.m. to 4 p.m. Cars are stopping in the middle of the road as they are unable to get through because the cars are double parked, and residents even refusing to take their cars out now as it takes too long to get out and back. Cars are being transferred to surrounding areas, i.e. Abbey Close and other surrounding roads, and are parking on people's restricted areas where carers visit, i.e. private parking and driveways. One morning I actually stopped as I had a day off and I counted 40 cars coming down Avondale Road. 40 cars. I spoke to Guru Nanak and the parking problems. The principal or the assistant principal even told me that the teachers are parking there during the day as well. But I understand children have to get to school. Cars got damaged, they tried to squeeze through, and as they had the big chrome side steps on 4x4s, the doors get damaged. Parents dropping children off are sometimes abusive and rude, and them causing residents problems doesn't even matter to them. This is due to get worse when the towers are being knocked down and the flats are rebuilt. And while I was getting the signatures, there was a lady at number 60 Abbotswood Way who had called for an ambulance one morning, and she said the ambulance couldn't get through. They had to park the ambulance at the last tower and wheel the trolley all the way up to get him. It's just not good enough, I'm afraid. You know, they've got Sainsbury's up the road, which is free parking at that early in the morning. They could easily go and park up there and just walk. It's not much more distance.
Thank you, Mr. Pitcher. Just for my clarification, when the school's on holiday, so you've enjoyed 6 weeks of weeks of peace, basically.
Bliss, yeah.
So there's no problem when the school's out.
Not when school's off.
It is entirely, just to be clear, it's entirely a school problem. Okay. Before I go any further, councillors, anyone want to speak on this?
It's just done a lot of work. I'm very grateful.
Sorry.
Just bring a chair down.
I think my concern about this is future-proofing, and it feels to me that the school needs to take some responsibility. When the reconstruction happens of the Avondale estate, and it's on the border of Hayes Town and our ward, that there's going to be construction traffic and bits as well. So this makes the short term very intensely difficult, and with different parking provision for that estate, it could compound the issues long term. I mean, for me, the problem with this is that yes, it's parent behaviour, but because the Uxbridge Road is inaccessible in the morning for people to go around the full way, and there is a bit of an issue on the Springfield Road side in terms of access, this shortcut is having, well, as you heard, a hugely detrimental effect. So a parking management scheme, I think, would be ideal, but if there is a way to see some improvement almost immediately with communication with the school, because parking management
The school doesn't really want to know.
Yeah. And if there isn't,
They said all they could do is just send letters out to the parents, and that was it. And they did that. They got back on. I got back onto the school because nothing improved, and they couldn't do anything else, they said.
because this, I mean, parking management schemes take a long time. If there is a case for one, and if we can get enough resident support, because they always are a little bit like Marmite, and I guess it's just trying to get some immediate relief. And I don't know if there's any other ways in which emergency vehicle access can be, a provision can be enforced in any other way. And if enforcement, I'm not sure if people are parking illegally. There'll probably be some.
They are when they're parking on driveways and
so whether
blocking people in.
Whether enforcement could be involved initially as well.
Could we close? Well, certainly enforcement's a possibility. If there's bad parking, then our officers can enforce. But sorry, excuse me. I assume we couldn't close the footpath at times of the day. Yes, yes.
Couldn't you do something like they have outside schools where they have no parking in those areas?
The zigzag line type.
Yeah, in between those times.
That is a way of handling it. But of course, if we ban parking, but say between 7:30 in the morning and 9 and 2:30 and 4 or whatever the hours might be, then of course it applies to everybody. And
but on that main, even if you just do it on that main stretch, because that is the
well, I mean, certainly one might do it on there, but then what I tend to find is it just shifts the problem. In other words, it doesn't go away, but the next bit gets clogged up. It's a valid point. It's a valid point, Mr. Pitcher, and it's certainly something we can look at. But there's no point in putting yellow lines there if all you do is move the problem 150 yards up the street. We need to find, if possible at least, a solution that will last.
The problem has already been impacted anyway.
In what sense?
Well, they're parking everywhere else now.
Oh yeah.
Because they're double parked, no one can get through. Well, I say they can't get through, but they're trying to park elsewhere, everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and they're quite narrow and twisty, turny roads anyway.
Well,
so
that stretch there,
that stretch
where
is
they
nice
walk
and straight.
through,
Yeah, that's
it's
quite
straight, but it's not wide.
No.
So I'm aware that in certain parts of UK there are schemes run by different companies. They're called Park and Stride. So like the gentleman mentioned that there's a Sainsbury's car park within the same walking distance. So what those companies do, they cooperate with the school and the councils, and so if Sainsbury's could agree for those parents to come and use the car park for free within those hours where they normally would drop off children, if they could park there instead, and then either all the children would walk themselves or the parents would walk them to school. Or any other facility where there is a parking area available. So, and also what they do, they ask parents to commit to the scheme by signing a letter. Then I promise that I will use the scheme. So if 50% of parents agree, then I don't know how many pupils are there, 1,400, I think, at the school?
Yes, I mean, one of the problems with, not problems, it's a nice problem to have, but Guru Nanak has become very successful, and it's grown from 153 pupils when it opened, I think, to 1,570 or something now. I went to a celebration there recently, and those were the figures. So, of course, it has become incredibly successful, and the problem has escalated as it's become more successful. Look, I think the problem is a clear one. We need to go away and see if we can come up with something that offers some solution, really. You see, if we put a PMS in there, parking management scheme, it's not going to. Yes. Yes. 10 and 11 and or whatever. Yeah.
The line that ran down just says you can't park unless you have a permit between X and Y.
Yeah.
I mean,
No.
So getting the support for it to be challenged throughout the process.
No, I agree with you. I think, well, look, let's go away and investigate it. I'm quite happy to. There's clearly a problem. Let's see if we can solve it. I think we should be able to rattle the school's cage a bit harder than they're currently having it rattled, and see if we can push them towards Sainsbury's or anybody else close by that could provide them with some alternatives that would take the pressure off here. Because if we can do it by persuasion, it would be better than not. But clearly, if parents aren't going to take any notice, then we'll have to take some sort of stronger action to see if we can.
Just wondering, is that are you saying there's a new recommendation for officers to investigate further with the school alongside?
If that helps, I think that helps. Yeah, bung that in.
Okay.
Sorry, you wanted to say something further, Mr.
Yeah, I can't see myself. I can't see that making any difference, because some parents might, some parents won't. You know, it's an easy cut through. Takes 10, 15 minutes there, 15 minutes back, half an hour, and then they come back, stand talking or whatever. You know, and I just see that outside most schools, you know, you have a sign and you have like zigzag lines saying no parking between these houses. That's.
I think that's, you know, those solutions work well outside schools, and work in relatively defined spaces. In other words, they deal with the space directly outside the school in general terms. Where it becomes more difficult, I think, is where you've got a longer stretch here, and I think that the problem with that is that what we want to try and do is cure the problem, not move it, and so I think that's the nuanced bit. But let's go away and investigate. Let's see what we can come up with, and let's see if we can come up with something that works a bit better.
So, Chairman, just for the benefit of the record, then you're moving the recommendation.
I'm moving the recommendations as shown in the report, plus that we have a conversation with the school.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank
Okay.
you.